Good morning. Welcome back to the Old Fashioned Show. Tuesday is the recruiting day. And Jason Sukamel decided that he was going to take a vacation this week in the
Come
middle
on.
of football season. Never heard of such a thing, John. I've never have heard of such a thing. So you know what we did? I decided I'm not even bringing in the B team. I'm bringing in the heavy hitter. It's not even B team. It's the A team. Really, Sukamel's the B team. It's John Garcia from Rivals.com. He's the expert, the guru. He knows everything. Good morning to you, John. How are you?
Good morning to you, Anwar. Yeah, good to be back on with you.
It's been a long time, man. It's been a really long time. But, you know, it's interesting, John, because thinking about this, it seems like there's two seasons in high school recruiting. There's that kind of committing season, and all these kids committed right before the season. And that July, August, it was a fury of stuff. And now we're getting into decommit and flipping season at this moment, where all these kids are like, well, because it's always all of them. It's all the same, right? I want to take a visit. I want to go see the such and such place. And now all of a sudden teams aren't doing so well. And now all of a sudden it's like it's flipping season. And so I wanted to kind of get you in here to kind of talk about that because there's several guys that Texas is looking at, several guys that are obviously flipping or decommitting at this moment. I want to start in Florida with Joseph Mbachu. I'm so the defensive end. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. And to anybody in Joseph's family, I apologize if I said it wrong. I will definitely do my best.
We'll call him Big Joe.
Big Joe. There you go, Big Joe. He was committed to Florida and decommitted, and he's actually was in Austin for the Texas-Georgia game. And then he's got some other places that he's looking into. But give us your breakdown on Big Joe, the commitment to Florida, the decommitment. For those who are unsure, give everybody like the backstory here.
Yeah. Two main points here with Big Joe. One, he's new to football. I mean, this is a kid who, despite being 6'6", 280, whatever he is, hadn't played a lot of football until last year. So there's always an intrigue there, right? Everybody says, hey, we can coach him up. Well, we know how to get him right, etc. But the problem was he's at Grayson High School, which, in the South is one of the premier high schools. So it's not like he was seeing a ton of snaps as a junior last year. But once he got into spring ball, his name started to create a little bit more buzz, and he's certainly taken that next step now as a senior to the point where, most of the SEC had circled back on Big Joe. Florida was early in, credit to them on this staff. Got the verbal commitment very early on as the hype was starting to build. But naturally, look, Florida, the chatter is pretty clear there. I think they're down to 10 verbal commitments at this point. There's an understanding that, hey, this is very fluid, to say the least, with Billy Napier. And I think every single Florida commitment has at least begun communicating with other schools, if not beginning to set visits to other programs. And really the combination of that and, every game tape that Joe puts out with this immense size starts to perk the ears up of all of SEC country. So Texas, Georgia, Auburn, Florida State, and the ACC, many schools in the region were like, hey, we need to get in on this kid. And he's starting to hit the road now. And really from the beginning of setting the Texas visit, there was a buzz for the Longhorns. Obviously on the field, the polar opposite of what Florida's doing from a winning and stability standpoint. So that's something that you could understand as impressionable to someone new to the sport, new to recruiting, new to all the stuff that we do every day. He's new to all of it. So you can understand why, hey, this team made the playoff last year. This team at the time undefeated, number one. I mean, hey, let's go visit. Let's see what that's all about. So there was buzz building for Texas to the point where even last week before he made the trip, there was a thought, hey, he's more likely to end up at Texas than sticking with Florida, certainly at this stage. So he makes the trip, and then the decommitment is imminent after that. I think it's one of those where you can kind of read into it as the facts come out. He makes the trip, he decommits. Texas is in the driver's seat. I think all of those things, while linear, are very true in this case. So, Texas has the ball in its court. He is going to try to get to Auburn. I think an official visit is scheduled in the next couple of weeks. Georgia's the wild card. Obviously, when you're talking D lineman, big D lineman, and that production, their resume is as good as anyone. So I think the potential push from Georgia could be a nice wild card here in that recruiting battle. And then something we're going to see a lot more going forward, right? A program like Texas going into that Atlanta to Tampa corridor to try to make an inroad, and vice versa. Georgia coming out to Dallas and Houston to try to win some battles as they have as well. So I think the good news for Texas is, one, fresh off the trip, visit high, decommitment, all of those facts are true. And two, Georgia's got a couple other D linemen that we know are higher on the board. They just got Elijah Griffin committed, a 5-star guy. Justice Terry is in state, a former Georgia commit that they really want to reel back in, who size-wise very similar to Big Joe. So if they remain the favorites there, and of course Terry was in Austin as well last week, if Georgia sticks with that pledge, I think Big Joe ends up at either Texas or Auburn. And right now, Texas would certainly have that edge.
Is he on the same team with Nick Brooks as well? Is he on that same team in Loganville?
Yep, Nick Brooks. There's a bunch of young guys on that team. That they're loaded every year, right? So it's one of those where you get a commitment and you could start to potentially build a pipeline. That's how consistent the Grayson high schools of the world are. Yeah.
Goodness gracious, they are a pipeline, obviously, for sure. I want to stay in the state of Florida for a second because we're talking about flipping guys and everything. And just a couple of weeks ago, Dalen McCutcheon, he flips his commitment from Florida State. He decides to go to Texas. The question I have is twofold. One, your thoughts on that. And I kind of am curious a little bit as your thoughts on the state of Florida from a recruiting perspective overall. You talked about Florida being a little bit, down as far as recruiting is concerned. I don't know if the McCutcheon thing is a one-off, but I know Florida State isn't necessarily what it used to be. We know Miami's pretty good as always, or at least over the last several years. But give me your thoughts on Dalen. And then where is the Florida universities standing as far as the recruiting thing is concerned?
Yeah, those are great questions. Look, Dalen can go. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This is an electric, explosive wide receiver. Saw him in person at the Rivals 5-star event in late June, and you sort of understood. Okay, you understood why there's been so much buzz since even before he committed to FSU initially, why these other programs weren't letting up here. So I think that speed can't be taught, and it speaks for itself from an evaluation standpoint. Sometimes the eval is pretty simple. This guy can go, you can get him the ball near the line of scrimmage or down the field. And obviously Texas has utilized that type of player as well as anyone over the last couple of years, even with totally different groups of wide receivers. So you could understand why that was attractive to him. Obviously he's got roots in the state as well. So that flip, I think, was something that it was, it built momentum just as the season started to unravel, became really clear. And just like we talked about with Big Joe in Florida, I mean, look, Florida State, it's one thing to come out of the gate slow, but it's one thing to be one of the worst offenses in America. Those are two different conversations. And where they're extremely poor is at the wide receiver position. It's with explosive plays. They're just non-existent in Tallahassee right now, which is crazy, right? They were undefeated last year. First round receiver. I mean, they had a bunch of chunk plays were easy, at FSU last year. But each year is its own animal, especially in the portal era, and it's something that when you start to line everything up, it's easy to see why a teenager would start to have a bit of a change of heart there. And I think it goes to what you said earlier about the universities. Perception is just so important with these kids. I mean, we talk about knee-jerk reactions, overreaction Monday morning quarterback, and we're doing this with the context of 20, 30, 40 years of watching the sport and understanding, how to contextualize the moment versus the season. But imagine being, 16, 17 years old without most of that context, and you're just seeing it happen in real time. The school I thought I was going to at my position is bad, very bad, in fact.
Mhm.
And these 2 or 3 schools that want me are very good at my position. I mean, sometimes it's so simple, and
Yeah.
you don't want to put too much weight into one game, maybe. So, like,
Mhm.
is Georgia going to now out recruit Texas because they won the game? No, it's not going to be that simple. But when
Yeah.
you expand it to the entire season, particularly with a theme or a trend that holds,
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
August to December, like a lack of explosive plays in Tallahassee, that's something that is going to resonate much more on the recruiting trail. And yeah, I think the ebb and flows of the schools in Florida have Florida was always wide open from a recruiting standpoint, but I think the door is busted down at this point. Um, there's
Yeah.
no there is no de facto loyalty. You're from Polk County, Lakeland High School, right?
Yeah.
Every great Lakeland High School player goes to Florida. That is something that used to be cut and dry. We don't even think about it anymore. The Pouncey twins, Chris Rainey, all these guys. Not
Mhm.
the case anymore. I mean, and Lakeland's best players committed to Ole Miss. Florida's trying, but
Yeah.
he's going back to Ole Miss this weekend, and he's really solid with the Rebels, and Colorado and some other schools are maybe in better position to flip him than Florida. So just that built-in pipeline in the state doesn't exist anywhere near how it used to when
Mhm.
these 3 teams were not only round robining with 10-win seasons and conference titles, but with national titles, right? You think
Yeah.
of what from 2000 to 2013,
Mhm.
all 3 of them won national titles, or all 3 of them won multiple national titles in that stretch, right? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
and competed otherwise,
Yeah.
very well. So, now it's almost an extreme. Miami's great, top 10, and the other 2 are struggling to get, to bowl eligibility. And in fact, neither, might get to bowl eligibility. So I think that variance has left the door wide open because it's felt that way for a few years. All 3 are not up at the same time. If one is up like FSU last year, then Miami's barely making a bowl and Florida's terrible. Now Miami is up and both Florida and Florida State are going to fight to make a bowl. So
Yeah.
that loyalty is gone in the state of Florida, and obviously there's so much talent anyway in the state that we've seen Floridians have so much success at Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia, and Alabama, and Clemson over the years that, the kids that this group is looking up to, they didn't do it, in Tallahassee or Gainesville. They did it in Death Valley or Austin or Columbus.
Yeah, and to your point, Jamie French is a great example of that, right? I mean, it's several years ago, the odds of getting a 5-star receiver to leave the state, see, it was preposterous, right? Like, no, of course he's going to go here. Maybe Alabama, maybe somewhere else in the deep South, but then to go to Texas. So your point is absolutely valid. And I want you to stay there for a second because, you know, I still got to keep bringing it up. I bring this up to Jason probably every week, every other week. But I think it's now come to a head when I look at staying with exactly where you are, Michael Fasusi, for instance. Here's a guy who commits to Oklahoma and he's looking at Texas, and then he goes and as the season plays out, you realize that Oklahoma offense is horrible, right? And so now, instead of waiting until after the season, mid-season they fire their OC, right? And so I'm curious from your perspective, and maybe it's early, so maybe it's too early, whether it's Fususi or any of the other offensive players who are committed to Oklahoma. I guess there's 2 ways of looking at it, right? It could be a good thing because you might have lost a bunch of guys if you didn't make a switch because the offense is trash, or there's a question mark. How do you see it kind of playing out right now?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating one because now you're talking about legitimate changes and changes with coaches who you spoke to and connected with and built some type of relationship with. So I think, we'll probably see it happen at Florida, wholesale. When you start changing personnel, it really starts to flip things in recruiting because, you know, while there is a lack of loyalty to the brand, to the programs that we've just talked about, there is plenty of loyalty to the person, right? To the coach
Mhm.
that, hey, this is my guy. I know he's going to text me, my motivational quote before my game on Friday or whatever it is. This is my guy. And now, that potential guy is gone. Now,
Mhm.
Oklahoma's unique, right? You've got a lot of storied coaches on that roster still. And obviously the O-line coach, Bill Beatonball, is still there. He's been there forever. He'll probably stay there forever. So I think that is a little bit more of a unique situation with Fasusi, but this is a kid that kind of likes the lights. He likes the
Mhm.
bright lights. He's confident. He's got a swagger about him when you talk to him. The last time I saw him in person over the summer, he was like, yeah, man, Texas. I love Texas. I love Oklahoma. He's like, I really like Oregon. I like what they're doing. That type of
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
prospect is keeping an eye on things as they move, as opposed to as they were. So I do
Mm.
think the door is certainly more open today than it was a week ago for Fasusi. Now, like you said, still early. It just happened.
Mhm.
Obviously, Oklahoma's going to try to circle back here. Beatonball might spend more time, trying to keep him committed, but when the
Mhm.
doors open, obviously you shoot your shot at a guy like that, and I think
Yeah.
it's probably going to be a Texas Oklahoma deal until the end with him, until December 4th, until signing day. But that's the other thing about this year. December 4th is pretty early. You're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
rivalry weekend is the weekend prior, right? It's
Mhm.
Thanksgiving weekend. So these kids are signing, before the playoff, amidst, conference title game week. I mean,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
portal's going to be open. The carousel is going to be open.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of a dramatic signing day, I think, because
Mhm.
of how early it is. You're going to be making a decision certainly before all the dust has settled, and that could benefit a program that's so stable, of course, like Texas.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back into Florida. It's interesting. It's interesting. We're in Texas. We're talking a lot about Florida, but I got to stay with Javon Hilson, right? I mean, and here we are. You were from out of Cocoa Beach, right? It says Cocoa. They must mean Cocoa Beach, right?
Yeah,
Cocoa
it's
Beach,
Cocoa
Florida.
Beach. Yeah.
Yeah. On Rivals. It says Cocoa, Florida. I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? I've never heard of a Cocoa,
It
Florida.
sounds tougher, so they dropped the beach for the football side. Yeah.
Okay. But he's obviously elite defensive end, 5-star. He was a guy that took a lot of visits to Florida State, right? And you thought to yourself, okay, well that makes sense. And then he's like, oh yeah, Florida State's not good. So where's the Javion Hilson recruitment standing at this moment?
Yeah, this one is fascinating. Like you said, another Florida State guy be decommits. And look, it was hard for him. Loves FSU, loves the personnel there,
Hmm.
but the combination of the season and just how many programs continue to push for him just made him have to take a step back. Now he has since gone back to FSU. He's gone to UCF, but last week he was at Texas again. And I think that's really where, when you're talking about trying to scale the favorites for a guy, I think that's where the conversation begins with Javion Hilson. I think he's one who committed early to Bama. Nick Saban retired. He opened it up and he went with his
Mhm.
heart at Florida State pretty quickly thereafter, meaning before official visit season. So when he started to schedule these official visits, they all started chipping away. And one of his best trips was out to Austin in the summer. There was a lot of flip buzz in June for Hilson and Texas, but he held off. Hey, let's see how the season goes, etc. Well, the season's gone, for Texas's scenario perfectly, right? Florida State's
Mhm.
got one win. Texas now has only one loss. So I think that combination pushed him to get back to Austin. It's the only school that, besides Florida State, that he's visiting that he's already taken an official to. And I think that says a lot about Hilson's, comfort there. He's a regional kid. Most people think this race is Georgia, Florida State, UCF, maybe Alabama gets back into it. And then there's Texas, right? So
Mhm.
to be a kid that's going to stretch it that far, there's got to be some comfort there. And he confirmed again this week, after he got back home. Yeah, Texas is absolutely, in great shape for him now because of the nature of his two decommitments, which he calls surprising. He's going to really take his time and do his due diligence. He didn't expect Saban to retire, which forced his first decommitment, and he certainly didn't expect FSU to come out like this. So he
Yeah.
felt like he was almost pushed towards
Uh-huh.
opening it up. So because of that, he's really going to do some due diligence and give some teams maybe outside the bubble a shot. He's going to go up to Syracuse next weekend for an
Oh,
official,
wow.
and he's going to go to A&M, where, of course, they're going to play Texas when he is in town for that one. Those are two trips that are first timers for him in that capacity. So I think he's doing his due diligence because of that. But I wouldn't read too much into it from the Texas standpoint. I think the Longhorns are in the driver's seat in this recruitment. He just confirmed that he's not going to decide until signing day, so until December 4th. But I don't think that hurts Texas's chances at all. I think this is more about, I got pushed somewhat into these decommitments. Let me control the tempo and the pace this time around. So he's going to do that with the schools that have been pushing for him. But Texas has been at the forefront of that conversation. The return trip only helped and increased those chances. But even without that trip, the buzz has begun with the Longhorns. So I really like where Texas stands here.
John, I'll ask you a few more before I let you go. You talked about Texas. You mentioned Texas A&M. Keland Johnson was a guy he's committed to A&M, but he was here this past weekend for that Texas-Georgia game. Obviously, I think he ended up saying that he had a good experience from there. What's your take on Keland and how solid he is to A&M? Is he just a kid that's like, hey, I'm just keeping my options open, like a lot of committed kids, or is there any flip possibilities there?
Yeah, I think there's a legit flip possibility because it's not just the one trip. He's already sort of looking down the line, and he's going to see Texas at least once more. And it could be more than that going forward. And there's obviously not that many home games left. So you're talking about a kid that just continues to pop up in Austin despite being committed elsewhere. And I think that's the classic indicator, right, in recruiting. We used to say track the visits, right? Before NIL, before all of these things, hey, track the visits, watch what these kids say, or watch what they do, more than what they say, because they're kids and they can wake up and now my favorite school is Duke or whatever. So what they do says a lot more about their recruitment. So a kid like that committed elsewhere who keeps showing up in Austin is the clearest tell we get in this business, besides the kid just telling you, yeah, I'm going to flip in a couple weeks, which does happen sometimes. Not in this case, but I think those visits are very telling with Keland Johnson. And again, at wide receiver, you understand it with Texas. This is something that has checked the box at every level, meaning great recruiting, great Saturday production, and Sunday results, right? First round picks, early round picks. That's the trifecta kids are looking for. So again, at that position, you understand it as much as any, why there is so much interest and why these kids keep coming back to Austin. So it could become a situation where the receiver group is solid and there's not many spots remaining. I mean, I think that could be a little bit more dramatic for Texas compared to whether or not kids want in. Kids are going to want in, but what's the number? Is there space to can Johnson commit right now? I don't have that confirmation. So I think that could be more of a tell with him, more so than whether or not he wants to come to Texas in the end.
Last couple of things. I noticed I was just going to stay in the state of Florida. There was a point where Texas was in DJ Pickett were a thing, and they were talking to each other. Is Texas kind of out of the DJ Pickett sweepstakes at this moment?
DJ, I would say after Javon Hilson are two of the guys that keep things closer to the vest than most, in Florida and among the 5 stars. So, we don't know where DJ's going until the week of, usually. He's a kid who, like you said, he had an open book going into his senior year, took a lot of trips and certainly laid a lot of things out before committing to LSU in the summer. Since then, he hasn't made a lot of trips. I think he went back to LSU and Florida, which is right up the road on I-75. And now he's going to Miami this weekend. So I think those are probably the main contenders there. But we still have, another month plus of the season itself. So that's one we're not going to be able to project as much going forward. Although LSU certainly worried about holding on to him because he does continue to take trips elsewhere. Miami's got some buzz. They've got some family ties, with both of his father and uncle having played down there. But we'll see. We'll see if Texas, Georgia, some of the other schools that were on his initial list, Oregon, can get back in with a late trip, but nothing is set as far as we know.
Last question, I'll let you go. Who are the guys that you would say Texas fans need to keep an eye on as signing day gets closer? To the biggest contenders you would say that's left on the board for Texas.
Yeah, I think you got to start with Hilson. I think that's you're talking about a 5-star potential impact pass rusher, just like we're seeing with Colin Simmons this year. I think he's the starting point of that conversation. Now, there are plenty other flip possibilities, and some of those are maybe even TBD going forward, depending on how the next couple of weeks go. But I think the Hilson conversation is where it should begin. You certainly will see Texas continue to shoot its shot for Fasusi, for some of these other recruits. But yeah, Javon Hilson's absolutely where the conversation should begin. I mean, Riley Pettijohn could be something, here down the line as time goes forward. That stay home pitch is one that has always had some grounds, in this game. So I do think that could be an interesting one as well. And you start to put these dominoes together, and there's a chance for not only a top 5 class, but there's an outside shot at a top 3 or even the number 1 class with some of these top schools: Texas, Ohio State, Bama, sort of the usuals near the top of the list. And these recruits are going to swing that thing one way or the other.
All right, John, go ahead and get out of here, man. I appreciate you. I told you this was the A team. I told you to screw Sukamel. Well, I wish we could do it every week, but we can't. But I'll see you in the next couple of months, though, John. I appreciate you, brother.
Anytime, boss. Appreciate you having me.
All right, John Garcia from Rivals.com, our recruiting expertise that's out there. Get removed, John. Okay, there he goes. He's got to hit that end button and get out of here. But John Garcia there, hopefully, if you joined the show late, make sure you go back to the beginning portion of the show to check him out. We're going to touch on a couple of quick little things before we get out of here today, because of course we got the modcast that is coming up soon. I want to make sure I tell you guys about Eric Torres. Eric sells homes DFW. Obviously, if you're looking for a house in the DFW area, you do not have to look any further. This guy will take care of you. Looking to buy a home, looking to sell a home, whatever it is. Eric Torres. Check out his Google reviews. Check out his Yelp reviews. It's not just me. It is everybody else who's out there saying it. So check him out. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Let him know your favorite unk sent you. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He's buying and selling is made easy with that guy. Also, of course, you know what time it is too. I think, where is this damn thing here? Hold on. It's too many. It's too many options. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. Of course, is the time you got to go out to Specs. It's Tuesday, Tequila Tuesday.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Cheers to everybody. Cheers to all y'all in the chat. Make sure y'all hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Let's talk about a couple quick other little things, housekeeping things, before we get out of here. I saw someone put this in the chat. Now look, we family, we kinfolk. So around here, we keep it a buck, we keep it real. I gotta say one thing. I'm just glad it wasn't Rivals who put something out there, accidentally got hacked or whatever the case may be with the whole Quinn Ewers thing yesterday. But damn. Y'all gotta, hey, listen, 24/7. I ain't trying to, it's your unk here. But they got this thing called like a 2-system, what's it called? The 2-step thing where you can't you got to go to 2 steps to hack into you? Like they do have that thing nowadays, man. And I didn't watch. I'm gonna say this, and someone's gonna take over my Twitter account, and I'm not gonna be able to get it back for like a year. I'm just glad it wasn't me. I'll just be honest with you. The whole time I was just like, man, I'm glad that wasn't me. Hey, that's them. I'm sure glad it wasn't me. They said they was hacked. I'm sure they were. I don't know who would do it. I'm just glad it wasn't me. It was crazy dealing with that yesterday, though. I gotta be honest with you. It was crazy getting text messages from people yesterday, and I'm like, come on, this is not happening. Like, this is what. First of all, there's nothing you saw on Saturday that was like, yo, Quinn needs to quit and just go to the NFL right now. Like, he's got to get some games under his belt. Like, there's that. Crap happens though, right? Crap happens. We all get hacked though, don't we? How many times I feel like at once a month I get an email that says there was a data breach for some company and like your information may be out there. Like, doesn't everybody get that? I know it just can't be me. Like, I feel like I get something like there was a data breach here, blah, blah, blah. Your information. I'm like, whatever, do whatever. I don't care. I got a credit freeze. I keep that thing. I keep my credit freeze on. Like, I got tired of all the data breaches. Like, it's just frozen. It is what it is. So anyway, I was kind of glad that it wasn't me. What does it say? Barbs is like the password. Probably 24/7 sports. It might be guest. I don't even know. Yeah, it's a 2-step. They got the authentic. What's it? What's the word? Authenticator. I don't know. I don't know why I can't say that word. Anyway, so they have that word. They got the app. Anyway, they have that. There's another thing I was going to show y'all real quick. It was really interesting. I saw this from Brett McMurphy yesterday. He came out with his playoff projections. I wanted to share this with y'all because I didn't get a chance to do my show on Friday. That was really pissed me off. I'll be honest with you. And can I say this about me not being able to do my show on Friday? It wasn't even me. It was this platform that we use because all my stuff was hooked up correctly. Like, all my stuff was, and I'm messing with my producer for like 20 minutes or so. And I can't get this thing to work. So I'm mad. I'm cussing, all that kind of stuff, right? And so he's like, all right, well, let's just close this one out. And let me just open up another one. And he opened up another one, and boom, they was able to hear me right away. And so it wasn't even me. All my stuff was hooked up correctly. I'm just want to say that for anyway. So Brett came out with this thing yesterday for his playoff projections. And I wanted to see, I just wanted to share this with y'all and see what you guys thought of this. But he came up with a CFP playoff projection. So look, we got plenty of time on this. He had Oregon, obviously at number 1, Georgia at number 2. You could see the rest: Miami, Iowa State, which is what world are we in right now? But Ohio State, Penn State, Texas at number 7, Clemson at number 8, LSU at number 9, A&M at 10, BYU at 11, and Army at 12. And then he's got a first round playoff game with Texas versus Texas A&M, with Texas being an 8.5-point favorite. So that's where that is. What State College, Pennsylvania? Okay, I'm not quite sure about the location portion of it, but any case, what a crazy world. And this is a world that I think we all have to start wrapping our heads around, because I think all of us are operating under the thought process that you want Texas could play Georgia again in the championship game, right? And I think that's what we can kind of keep going at. I will have to say this though. We have to kind of factor in Texas A&M in this factor. So here's why. Here's why I just got to factor in. They're 4-0 in the conference as it stands, okay? They also, they've got LSU coming up this weekend, right? But that's at home. And then when you get past that, let me just take this off of here. And let me just I'll share this with you. I mean, you said when I take things off the screen, I go in total chill mode. So I go in total chill mode. Let me share this with you though. And I'll make this one a little bit bigger, and I'll take the chat down for a second. I know you don't like the Aggies. I know that I understand the hatred that you have for the program. I get all that, right? Let's just have a football conversation for a second, okay? They're already sitting at 4-0. Okay, so they are at 4-0 in the conference. You can see up here, right? 6-1 overall with the only loss to Notre Dame, but 4-0 in the conference. So let's focus in on that for a second. They got LSU, which should be a good game. That should be a really tough game, right? After that, though, they've got South Carolina, which is a tough team, but that's the team that they probably should beat. Then they've got New Mexico State, which is not a conference game. They've got Auburn, which sucks. They suck. And then they got Texas. So the reality is, I'll be honest with you, if they beat LSU this upcoming weekend, they've got one competitive game against South Carolina, but South Carolina just beat the crap out of Oklahoma, but that's not saying much. I think Oklahoma sucks. They are hot garbage right now, so that's not saying a lot, right? Even though it was kind of funny that it was a former coach did that to him like that. So they should beat South Carolina. They should beat Auburn. If they beat LSU, they have Texas at the end of the year. Even if they lose to Texas, they still have a very, very good shot of being in the the SEC championship game. And so you gotta start thinking of a world where, as much as you hate that program, and I get all the reasons why, but as much as you hate that program, you just got to start wrapping your head around a world where you might see A&M twice. Like you might see A&M in the final regular season game, and then the SEC championship game the following week. Like that's how crazy this thing could or could not be. But of course, I know you guys well enough. You'll be rooting for LSU this weekend. I know the petty that would exist within this fan base, and I know you're gonna be rooting for LSU this weekend. So I totally get that. Hold on, there's a super chat that came in, and I know SEC Matt, I owe you apparently a super chat as well. If you're here, I will definitely take care of you today. Anwar, sabotaged by the same fool that cut Kirby's, I don't know what that is. Can we get some checks and balances on that? Last time I'll bring up UGA and Kirby, Cartman Smart. I have no clue what you just said, Barbs. Can someone translate it? Barbs 10, you're a cool person. You're a friend of the show. You family, you kinfolk. I literally do not know what that comment means. Sabotaged by the same fool that cut Kirby's comms? I don't know what Kirby's comms is. And can we get some checks and balances on that? I don't know what these first two sentences mean. And then the last time I bring up UGA and Kirby, Cartman Smart. Now, I get the last part. I get that one. But Barbs, if you could clarify to me what the hell you talking about in the first two sentences, that'll help me out. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So while you're doing that, Barbs, you clean that up. I will show y'all my power rankings. I came out with them. I typically wait into Thursdays or so to do that. Okay. I'm going to sabotage by the same fool that cut Kirby's communications. Oh, wait, is that what that means? Oh, you saw talk. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. Sometimes I appreciate. Thank you. Thank you, fam. I appreciate y'all knowing what he was saying. Barbs, and I wasn't trying to clown you, dog. I probably wasn't trying to clown you. I literally, well, I was kind of clowning you a little bit, but in a friendly way. I literally just didn't understand what the hell you were saying. But now I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I definitely got the okie doke on Friday. And I had so much stuff prepared for y'all. You don't know how mad I was. I had so much stuff prepared for y'all on that. And that's the last time we're going to talk about it. Hopefully the stuff works. Of course, my mic stand broke. And so I had to rig it to make it good. Hey, last thing, I usually save my my power rankings. I've been showing y'all that on Thursdays, but I feel like everybody puts theirs out like on a weekend, so I kind of feel like Thursday's too far. So I decided like I'm going to stop doing that. So I'm actually going to show it to you earlier. So actually, I'm going to show it to you guys twice in a week. I'll just be honest with you. I'm going to show it to you on probably like Tuesdays, and then I'm going to show it to you on Thursdays as well as we do a review. All right, so here's my power rankings for the week. These are my week 9 power rankings. So I've got Georgia at the number 1 spot, right? I don't think anyone can debate that. I've got Texas at number 2. There's no need to be dramatic with that. They lost to a good team, and I'm not gonna hold that against Texas at all. So I've got them at the number 2 spot. I have moved. I keep telling myself this. Okay, next week, I'm going to make sure my guy shows you where they were the previous week. But I will tell you that I moved LSU up to the number 3 spot after the win against Arkansas. Yeah, my thing with LSU for the most part, especially after the loss against USC, they played USC, Nicholls, South Carolina, UCLA, South Alabama, and I was bored to tears about that. I was like, I don't care. They did go out and beat Ole Miss, so I had to give them props to that. Then they beat Arkansas pretty handily, 34-10. And so at that point, I said to myself, okay, it's time to give LSU some props, LSU some loves. So yes, I did move them ahead of Texas A&M. Because I moved Texas A. I did drop Texas A&M down a spot or 2 from where they were last week, even though sitting at 4-0. I thought the LSU wins are a little bit better than the A&M wins at this point because A&M has defeated Florida. They've defeated Arkansas, but that was a close game. They defeated Missouri, which we all consider to be frauds, and then they defeated Mississippi State. So I felt the need to drop them a little bit. I've got Tennessee up there, 3-1, but obviously they're coming off a win against Alabama, who I told y'all. No, the people didn't want to believe me when I told y'all I wasn't sold on Alabama weeks ago. I told you after that USF game, I was like, man, and I had the battles. And I had the battles back and forth with Catch about Alabama and Keland DeBoer and Jalen Monroe. And I tried to tell y'all I wasn't sold on them. And Tennessee does what I expected them to do. So I ended up moving Vanderbilt down. For all those who said I overreacted, I react week to week. And so Vanderbilt, yes, I think they were at my number 3 spot after the Alabama win. They're back down to earth. At the number 6 spot ahead of Alabama at this moment. Ole Miss, there's a problem with Ole Miss. It's kind of the good and the bad of Ole Miss is where they're at. You can say to yourself, well, Ole Miss, they have close losses, Kentucky and then LSU. They're like, well, those are close games. Yeah, but they are losses and they count. And so they have defeated South Carolina, which is basically their only conference victory at this moment. They've defeated Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, South Carolina. Those are their 5 wins. and they've lost to Kentucky and LSU. So that's why I have Ole Miss down where they are at this moment. Florida is fine. They're hanging around. It is what it is as far as Florida is concerned. We just had a recruiting guy on here. They're 2-2 in the conference. It is what it is as far as they're concerned. And then South Carolina, again, competitive team. You give sure you beat Oklahoma. What was it, 35-9? But Oklahoma sucks, so I can't give them that much credit. And South Carolina, South Carolina, their 3 losses. They've lost to LSU, which is ranked. They've lost to Ole Miss. They kind of got their asses kicked by Ole Miss, 27-3. And then they lost to Alabama, who I don't think is that good. So they're kind of right where they need to be. Missouri, we know they're frauds. Kentucky, good defense, no offense. You score six points is all it takes to beat them. Oklahoma is lucky. They're lucky I'm nice. Ish. Oklahoma is arguably, they at least have one conference win. So Oklahoma has one conference win. Auburn doesn't have a conference win. Mississippi State doesn't have a conference win. It's the only reason. And they beat Auburn. So I had to go ahead and put them ahead of Auburn. And of course, Mississippi State, which is not that good. I mean, and look, there's a conversation to be had that maybe Mississippi State should be at 15 and Auburn should be at the 16 spot. But I'll be honest with you, once we get down there, like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, does it really matter? Who's debating 16 versus 15? Like, they both are not good. So maybe Mississippi State should be ranked higher just because they were a little bit competitive against Georgia. But we're talking about the bottom of the bottom. I feel like things are starting to shape out a little bit better. And so that's kind of where I am from a power ranking perspective. Let me go back through. I don't want nobody to say we took their money. I'm going to make sure there is no other super chats that have come in. I don't see SEC Matt in here. So it kind of is what it is. And then hold on, the Green Lantern, my dude, wanted to say, don't know how where Friday might have been an inside job. Jealousy about your network love might be the culprit. Hey man, it's gonna be everybody hacked. That's what it. That's all we got to do nowadays. That fellas, you can start using that. wait, all you fellas who get caught up. When your lady goes through the phone, just be like, that wasn't me. I was hacked. I did not say nothing. Now I was hacked. That seems to be the thing. I say this, right? And watch. I'm going to lose my Twitter account today. I won't be able to get it back for a month. All right, listen, y'all. I got to get out of here. We've got the modcast coming up in a couple of minutes. I don't even know who's filling in, but we got the conversation that's going to happen there. So let me get out of here. Let me do a couple of things, and I will see y'all in 10 minutes. And of course, see you tomorrow as well. Y'all take care. Remember, I always say live each day like it was your last, because one day it will be. So go out there, do something nice and special for yourself. Celebrate yourself, because if anybody's worth it, you are. I will definitely see y'all 10 minutes. Peace.